بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Beloved brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. In our fiqh lessons, Alhamdulillah, this evening we close Kitab al-Tahara, the chapter of cleanliness, with the last lesson from this chapter, inshallah, in which we look at an area of fiqh that relates particularly to our sisters, inshallah. We're looking at the concept of menstruation. And this section is very important, of course, naturally for all women, but also for fathers and husbands, because men often have to respond to these questions. There might be young ladies or the lady you are married to, or your daughters or granddaughters that pose questions related to this. And this section is usually quite lengthy, but I've summarized it into a single slide, inshallah, looking at the very important rulings relating to hayd and istihada, the concept of menstruation, and we're looking at irregular bleeding and also nifas, the postnatal bleeding. So the Shaykh writes, I've summarized the rules. أقل الحيض يوم وليلة وغالبه ست أو سبع وأكثره 15 يوما بلياليها. So the Sheikh writes, and I'm going to try and do a summary, inshallah. And these are the fundamental rules that we apply. Firstly, the minimum menstrual period for a lady is a day and a night, essentially 24 hours. Now, this is a common question that sisters often ask me. They'll WhatsApp me and they'll ask, and it's good, inshallah, if they can ask also their husbands. It's not only for the ulama to be clear on. The minimum menstrual period is 1 day and a night. Anything less than that does not fall into hayd. It generally lasts for 6 or 7 days, and the maximum period is 15 days and nights. Now, this is in accordance with the Shafi'i school. So what's important here is if there's any bleeding for less than a day, for less than 24 hours, it won't be categorized as hayd. And if it goes beyond 15 days and nights, the wife asks you, daughter asks you, then that also is not categorized as menstruation. The minimum interval of purity between two menstruations will be 15 days. So if a lady has completed her menstruation of 15 days, beyond that it is not considered hayd. It is then considered istihada. And if there is any form of bleeding within the 15 days that succeeds hayd, that is also istihada. And of course, this also affects issues related to intimacy between husband and wife. Generally, the period of purity lasts for 23 or 24 days, and there's no maximum limit. And so sometimes I'm smiling because some younger girls told me, what if they reach 24 days? Can they just take a break now of being clean? No, you actually then would need the period. You can't just say that you've reached the maximum period of cleanliness. In reality, there isn't a maximum period. And then the minimum postnatal bleeding would be a single discharge, right? That is the minimum. Generally, nifas, postnatal bleeding, lasts for 40 days, and the maximum for nifas is 60 days. Beyond that, we consider it istihada. It does not fall into the category of nifas. So we conclude, inshallah, as a summary, that a lady, in the ulama have written, the ladies must be familiar with these periods of time. Now, if a lady has doubt, then she, of course, let's say there is a little bit of bleeding, very common scenario, and she no longer performs salah, and she realizes, this is very, very common, I would list it as scenario, the most common scenario, that there's bleeding that clears up within 24 hours. Now she has not performed salah, she was under the understanding that it was hayd, but it stopped. What should she do? She obviously then recognizes that it was istihada, and she then has qada. She has to make up all of that missed salawat. And she has to be familiar with these periods of time. Minimum period of haid, maximum period, and so forth. And then also a lady would know the types of blood that comes out. She can get accustomed to that. And we do live in a time of irregularity. Stress contributes. There are times also during the month of Ramadan with fasting, ladies aren't sure. They have to look at their routine. And of course, in accordance with their routine, they would either not fast, not perform salah, or they would continue and then realize afterwards within 24 hours if anything has to be repeated, inshallah. Okay. I don't know if men have questions. Okay. Okay, inshallah. If your wives send you with questions, then you can bring it to me next week, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Muhammadin. Shukran.